What would you do if the very child you rescued from the streets later grew into the hand that would strip you of everything you held dear? This is not only a story, it is a mirror, a warning that not every hungry face carries gratitude, and not every tear means innocence. It began one windy evening in Sapele, a bustling town where life pulsed through every street. Traders packed their goods after a long day. Children's laughter echoed as they chased one another, and the air smelled of fume and dust. But at the roadside, near the rusted iron signboard, sat a boy. His name was Mena. He was no more than 12. With clothes so worn out, they barely clung to his body. Dust covered his legs, and his eyes, dark, hollow, searching, looked older than his years. People passed him by. Some muttered another street boy. Tomorrow he will become a thief. Others simply turned their faces away. To them, he was invisible. But not to Mr. Palm. Mr. Palm was a man in his late 40s, respected in Sapele for his trading business. He was wealthy, but loneliness walked with him everywhere. Years ago, he had buried his wife, and though his house was large, it echoed with silence. That evening, as he walked home, his eyes fell on the boy. Something inside him paused. He asked softly, "Boy, why are you sitting here? Where are your parents?" Mena raised his face slowly. His lips trembled before he whispered, "I have no one." Those words cut through Mr. Palm like a knife. He wanted to walk away. He had always been cautious of street children. But as he turned, the boy's thin frame shook in the cold wind, and something in Mr. Palm's heart would not let him move. Maybe this is a sign, he thought. Maybe I can give this boy a chance at life. He stretched out his hand. "Stand up. You will not sleep hungry tonight." Mena's eyes widened, filled with something between shock and hope. Slowly, he placed his small hand into Mr. Palm's. The warmth of compassion swallowed the chill of the evening, and that was the beginning. That evening, a door opened in Sapele, a door that Mr. Palm believed was for kindness and redemption. The house in Sapele stood tall, its iron gates creaking as it opened. The compound was wide, with flowers neatly planted on the side, and the front porch where silence often sat like an old friend. Mena stood at the gate, staring in awe. His small eyes darted around. From the tilted walls to the wooden front door, it was unlike anything he had ever seen. To him, it was not just a house, it was a kingdom. "Come in," Mr. Palm said, his tone firm but gentle. He led him through the corridor that smelled faintly of polish and soap. Waiting inside was Mrs. Ruky, Mr. Palm's younger sister. She had come to live with him after her marriage failed. She was a woman of strong will, sharp tongue, and eyes that saw through people quickly. When she saw the boy, her brows furrowed. "Who is this?" she asked. "A boy I found by the roadside," Mr. Palm replied. "His name is Mena. From today, he will not suffer on the streets again." Mrs. Ruky crossed her arms. She studied the boy, her silence heavy. Finally, she said, "Palm, kindness is good, but kindness without caution, it can destroy a man." Mr. Palm sighed. Not every child becomes a thief. Maybe he just needs someone to believe in him. Mena lowered his gaze, as if embarrassed. He mumbled, "Thank you, sir." His voice was soft, trembling with emotion, or so it seemed. That night, Mrs. Ruky prepared a plate of hot food. Mena ate as though the world might take the plate away at any second. Tears rolled down his cheeks with every bite. Watching him, Mr. Palm felt a strange peace, like he had done something noble. But Mrs. Ruky's eyes did not leave the boy. Something unsettled her spirit. She said nothing, but deep inside, a whisper told her, this child carries a story, one we do not know yet. As the house grew quiet, Mena lay on a bed, softer than anything he had ever touched. He stared at the ceiling, his small lips curving into a faint smile. Outside, the night in Sapele was calm, but inside that house, destiny had just taken a dangerous turn. The days in Sapele passed slowly after Mena entered Mr. Palm's house. At first, everything seemed almost too peaceful. Mena woke early, swept the compound. He obeyed instructions without complaints. When neighbors passed by, they nodded and whispered, "Palm has done well. That boy will grow into a fine man." To many, Mena was no longer a street child. He was a miracle. But not to Mrs. Ruky. She watched him with cautious eyes. She noticed how Mena studied every corner of the house, as though memorizing it. How he lingered at the storeroom door longer than most children would. How he asked questions about Mr. Palm's business, his customers, his travels. One evening, as she folded laundry, she called him. "Mena, come here." "Yes, ma," he replied quickly, dropping the broom and hurrying over. She looked straight into his eyes. "You are lucky. Do you know that? Many boys like you are still out there, sleeping under the rain and cold. This house is not your father's house, but you must learn respect. Do you understand?" Mena lowered his head, his voice soft. "Yes, ma, I will never forget what Uncle Palm has done for me." The words were sweet, but Mrs. Ruky's spirit was not at rest. Meanwhile, Mr. Palm grew fond of the boy. He would take him along to the market, showing him the shops, the warehouses, even the county tables where money was exchanged. One day, "Mena," he said proudly, "you will be more than just a boy I helped. You will be my son." Those words lit a fire in Mena's eyes, but no one could tell whether it was gratitude or something else entirely. No one knew that under the blanket of innocence, the boy was already weaving threads of a story that would one day unravel everything. Weeks turned into months in Sapele, and Mena became part of Mr. Palm's daily life. The boy walked beside him in the market, carried his books, and listened with wide eyes whenever business talk filled the air. Mr. Palm felt a strange joy. "This boy will be my legacy," he often said to neighbors. "He will continue what I started." The townspeople admired his kindness. Some envied him, others whispered warnings, but Mr. Palm was blind to it all. Only Mrs. Ruky kept her eyes sharp. One afternoon, she noticed something strange. Mena was in the storeroom, holding the keys a little too tightly, as if testing their weight. When she asked what he was doing, he quickly smiled and said, "I was only arranging the sacks." She didn't believe him. Later that night, as they ate dinner, she turned to her brother. "Palm, I hope you know what you are doing. You trust this boy too much, too quickly." Mr. Palm only laughed. "Ruky, you worry too much. Can you not see? Mena is like the son I never had." Across the table, Mena's eyes glistened in the dim lamplight. He bowed his head, whispering, "Thank you, sir." To the room, it sounded like gratitude. But in the silence of his heart, another thought lived. Some snakes do not bite with fangs. They bite with words sweeter than honey. Life in Sapele was settling into a rhythm. Mena worked hard, spoke gently, and moved with a humility that won admiration from many. Even Mrs. Ruky, whose eyes once burned with suspicion, began to soften towards him. It began with small things. When she cooked, Mena would stand beside her, watching, handing her spices. "Auntie," he said one evening, "your food tastes better than anything in the whole world. If I ever marry, I would beg my wife to cook like you." She chuckled. His voice was innocent, his eyes shining with sincerity. For the first time, she smiled at him without force. The neighbors noticed the change. One morning, when a woman passing by muttered, "Palm is wasting his wealth on a street boy," Mrs. Ruky surprised herself by replying, "No, Mena is different. You will see." Mena heard it. He bowed his head, hiding a smile. Yet, under the sweetness of his tongue, something else was at work. He listened carefully whenever Mr. Palm discussed business. He asked questions, not foolish ones, but clever ones. "Uncle," he said one afternoon, "why do customers trust you so much?" Mr. Palm, proud of his new son, explained freely, never imagining that every word was a stone Mena stored in the foundation of a future plan. One night, as she folded clothes, Mrs. Ruky sat back and sighed. "Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this boy truly is a blessing." But as she spoke, Mena sat quietly in the corner, polishing Mr. Palm's shoes. His face looked humble, almost saintly. Yet, if one had looked closer, they would have seen it, the faintest call of a smile, hidden in the shadow of the lamp. As weeks passed in Sapele, Mr. Palm's trust in Mena deepened. He began sending him on small errands, carrying goods, paying for supplies, even delivering short messages to traders. At first, it was harmless. Mena returned every cent accounted for, every task completed with care. The traders praised him. "Your boy is sharp," they told Mr. Palm. "He will make you proud." But behind the praise, shadows were moving. Mena was not just learning the parts of the market. He was memorizing them. He knew who controlled which stores, which guards were lazy, which traders cheated customers, and which ones could be swayed by a quiet word. One afternoon, Mrs. Ruky spotted him talking with two other boys in the market. When she approached, they scattered like frightened birds. "What were you doing there?" she demanded. Mena lowered his head, his voice soft. "They asked me for directions, Auntie. I was only helping." His tone was so calm, so humble, that for a moment she doubted her own suspicion. Still, unease called in her stomach. That night, she told her brother, "Palm, you are blind. This boy is not as innocent as you think. I saw him whispering with street boys." But Palm only shook his head and laughed. "Ruky, must you always suspect? Let the child breathe. One day, you will thank me for bringing him into this house." Across the room, Mena sat quietly, polishing the lamp. His face showed nothing. His silence was perfect, but deep inside, he was smiling. One quiet evening in Sapele, the compound lay still. The moonlight spilled across the courtyard, silvering the walls. Mrs. Ruky walked past the storeroom, humming softly as she carried folded clothes. But then she froze. The storeroom door was ajar. Inside, a shadow moved. She stepped closer, her heart beating hard. She saw him, Mena, his finger curling around a bunch of keys Mr. Palm usually left hanging on a nail. "What are you doing there?" Her voice cut through the silence like a whip. Mena spun around, eyes wide. He dropped the keys and they clattered against the floor. "Auntie, I was only arranging the sacks," he stammered. His voice shook, his face pale. Mrs. Ruky narrowed her eyes. "At this hour, with keys in your hand?" He swallowed hard, tears glistening in his eyes. "I did not mean anything. I just wanted to help Uncle keep things in order." Her suspicion flared, but his trembling voice pressed against her heart. She wanted to believe him. Still, she said sharply, "Don't let me ever see you there again." That night, she told Mr. Palm, "Your boy was in the storeroom. He had the keys. I don't trust him, Palm." But her brother only sighed. "Ruky, he's a child. You make shadows out of nothing." Her mouth opened, but no words came. She saw the certainty in his eyes. He would not listen. And in the corner of the room, Mena sat silently, his face lowered. To everyone else, he looked like a scolded child. But in the flicker of the lamplight, his lips curled ever so slightly. Weeks later, the compound brimmed with excitement. Mr. Palm's birthday had arrived. A modest celebration, but the neighbors gathered. Drums thumped, and the air smelled of pepper soup. Children ran about with balloons, while women in wrapper clapped to the rhythm of songs. Mr. Palm beamed as guests hailed him. "Long life, Chief. May your days be many." He lifted his cup of wine, his laughter filling the night. Mrs. Ruky moved about, greeting guests, her eyes constantly scanning. Though she smiled, her mind never left Mena. She watched him closely, half expecting mischief. But Mena was the picture of innocence. He helped serve plates, carried stools, even danced a little when the drum grew louder. Every guest patted his head and praised him. "Pam, this boy is truly a blessing," one woman said. Mr. Pam's chest swelled with pride. "He is my joy," he declared, pulling the boy close. Later, when the laughter had peaked and the compound buzzed with merriment, Mena slipped away. Few noticed. Only Ruky's sharp eyes caught it. The way he moved quietly toward the back, she followed, careful not to draw attention. The path led toward the storeroom again. But before she could call his name, Mr. Pam staggered into her path, drunk with happiness. "Ruky, leave the boy alone tonight. It's my day. No suspicion, no quarrel, just joy." His words silenced her. Against her better judgment, she nodded and returned to the guests. Moments later, Mena emerged from the shadows, his face calm, his small hands brushing dust from his shirt. He walked back into the crowd, carrying nothing, yet his eyes glittered like someone who had just hidden away a dangerous secret. 2 weeks after the birthday celebration, the compound grew strangely quiet. Mr. Pam had traveled for business, leaving Mrs. Ruky alone with Mena. At first, everything seemed normal. The boy swept the veranda, even sang softly as he walked. But on the 3rd morning, Ruky woke up to a stillness she couldn't explain. The kettle was cold, the broom lay untouched, and Mena's room was empty. She searched the house quickly, calling his name. No answer. The storeroom door creaked open when she pushed it, but the inside was bare, save for dust and shadows. By midday, panic set in. She alerted neighbors. Together, they scoured the streets of Sapele, asking traders, calling at every compound. Some had seen Mena the day before buying bread, but today, no one could say where he had gone. When Mr. Pam returned that evening and heard the news, his face went pale. "What do you mean the boy is missing?" His voice cracked like a whip. "I woke up and he was gone," Ruky whispered, her eyes downcast. Anger and despair tore through the man. He searched the night himself, calling, shouting, pleading into the darkness, but only the sound of crickets answered him. Neighbors gathered, whispering. Some shook their heads, others exchanged knowing looks. "Strange things have been happening since that boy came," one man muttered. By dawn, the whisper had grown into suspicion, and suspicion into fear. When the child disappeared, the world stops breathing. But for Mr. Pam and Mrs. Ruky, the days that followed were more than silence. They were torments. For 3 nights, Mr. Pam did not sleep. He searched the streets, the markets, even the riverbank. Each morning, he returned home with dust on his feet and despair in his eyes. On the 4th morning, as the cock crowed, Mrs. Ruky swept the front of the compound. Her broom brushed against something tucked under the wooden gate, a folded paper, heavy with dampness from the night dew. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. The paper smelled of charcoal and smoke. When she unfolded it, words scrawled in crooked letter stared back at her. "Do not look for me. I was never yours. What belongs to me, I will come back for." No name, no mark. But Ruky knew the handwriting, the small unsure strokes, the boy's end. Her knees weakened. She sank onto the earth, crunching the paper as though it burned her fingers. When Mr. Pam saw it, he snatched it away, reading aloud with a voice that shook. "What belonged to me, I will come back for." He repeated the line, his eyes narrowing, his breath heavy. Ruky covered her mouth. "Pam, what does he mean? What is it he will come back for?" But Mr. Pam did not answer. He only stared at the gate, as if beyond it stood a shadow waiting to return. That night, the compound was wrapped in a fear deeper than darkness. Mena was gone, yet his presence lingered like smoke after a fire, unseen but choking. And so, the story of adoption that began with kindness now walks a road of betrayal, for the boy had left a promise and a warning.